Hi, my name is Charisse Janelle, and you are listening to Chapter 8 of Barbara Conklin's P.S. I Love You, book number 1 of the Sweet Dreams book series by Bantam Books, copyright 1981. Chapter 8. I started the fire and told Kim to set the picnic table out on the patio. Make sure there are dishes of pickle relish, mustard, catsup, and anything else you can think of, I told her. I don't want us to have to run in and out for anything. Kim nodded and set to work. But my mind was far from the pickle relish or hot dogs at that moment. Maybe he wouldn't show up. It was 10 after 8 already, and neither Jim nor Paul had arrived. I stared into the fire as it flared in sharp, wild points of white, leaping for the dark sky, and then slowly quieted down and burned slow and steady. Soon the coals would turn gray and it would be time for the hot dogs. Still, Paul did not show. My mother came out with the hot dogs and rolls, and at the same time, Jim was coming down the brick path. He had a paper bag in his hand, and he thrust it at my mother. "They're still hot," he said, "right from the oven." My mother opened the bag and smiled. "Chocolate chip cookies," she exclaimed. "We love them. Did you make these yourself?" "Sure did," old Jim said, smiling and showing where some teeth should be. "Right after I gave up the gazebo today." "I didn't know you could bake too," my mother told him. "My wife and me used to bake all the time," he told us. His voice sounded so wistful, trailing off in not more than a whisper. I knew my mother wouldn't probe further because the timing wasn't right. When he wanted to, he would tell us. My mother was very smart that way. She knew just when to question people and when to leave them alone. Not like me, I realized. At 8:30, I sneaked a glance at my mother. She didn't say anything, but I knew she was thinking the same thing I was. He wasn't going to show. "I think we should start the hot dogs," my mother said at 8:45. "You must be starved," she said to Jim. "That I am," the old man said, drinking his second cup of coffee. He'd brought a bottle of something with him, and every once in a while he would slip it out of his back pocket and add it to his coffee. My mother pretended she didn't notice, but I knew she did. As the sound of the hot dog sizzling on the grill filled the air, I looked up and gazed glumly at the stars. Palm Springs weather is really strange. No matter how hot it is in the day, it gets beautiful and cool at night. I would call all the nights heavenly because you can see every star you'll ever want to see. And there are a lot of strange noises, including coyotes, Jim had told us. And then the birds. Did they ever sleep? In the Abbott's garden, they talked among themselves all night. Suddenly, the bushes swayed and parted, and Paul Strobe stood before us. Trying to catch his breath, he said to all of us, "I'm sorry I'm late. I wanted to buy a few things, and the store was jammed." He handed my mother a box of chocolates and a huge bag of M&Ms to Kim. In his other hand, he carried a bag, and he handed that one to me. "It's a book," he said, trying to catch his breath. "I picked it up in Dad's bookstore. It's all about Palm Springs, and I think you'll really enjoy it." Slowly, I pulled it out of the bag. I opened it carefully, and I saw it contained the complete history of the city and a list of things for the present, and then a chapter on the future of the town. There were at least 20 pages of paintings of the desert and the Indians. It was beautiful, but more importantly, if he gave me a book, that must mean he doesn't hate me. My heart felt as if a ton of bricks had been lifted off of it. It tells all about the Indians, their reservations, how Palm Springs was formed. "You'll enjoy it, I'm sure," Paul told me. "Thank you," I said cheerfully. "I'll look at it before I go to bed." "Paul should show you the canyons," old Jim said, sipping at his coffee. Oh, but I forgot. It's summer, and they're closed to the public. Paul stood before me. He hadn't moved an inch since he had presented his gift to me. I'll show her anyway, he said to old Jim. And then to me, I have a secret entrance. My friend Joe showed me. But then, I'll tell you about it later. Later. I savored the sweet sound of that word. He wanted to take me to the canyons to talk to me. Later. I looked up into his face, his blue eyes twinkling with friendliness. I blushed when he answered my starry-eyed stare with a quick wink. "They're on fire!" my mother was yelling, pointing at the hot dogs revolving on the spit. "Let's get them off!" She ran over to remove them, and Jim followed to help. Kim had disappeared into the oleanders, and I knew she was stealing some of the M&Ms before dinner, ignoring my mother's warning that she should not open the bag until she'd eaten. Paul and I sat down at the far end of the picnic bench, far enough away from the others so they wouldn't hear. I took a deep breath and I looked straight ahead. "I'm sorry," I whispered to him. "I'm sorry I badmouthed rich people in front of you. I had no way of knowing." He put up his hand. "No, I should have come right out with it. I should be apologizing. That's why I brought the book to you. It's a peace offering. But if I had known..." "It's okay, Mariah. Remember what I said about the guy who lives in that house? He's so nice, he wants to show you that all rich people aren't snobs." He tweaked my nose playfully. I laughed, hoping the others wouldn't notice. "Still, I was wrong," I repeated. "Look, Mariah, I'm not rich," he said seriously. "My great-grandfather came to Palm Springs and knocked himself out on the land to make a good living. Later on, he bought parcels of the land and became rich. Then his son, my grandfather, worked right along with him. Then my father inherited it all and bought a bookshop and sold properties, and there you are. I'm just my father's son. So far, I haven't made a dime of that wealth, but I'm going to work hard and be something my folks will be proud of." Here, I had worried all that time about apologizing to Paul, and it hadn't been hard at all. I smiled at him. Under the picnic table, he found and squeezed my hand. My mother and Jim came over to the table with the charred hot dogs, just as Kim conveniently stepped out of the oleanders. But before they all reached the table, Paul whispered to me, "You have a beautiful smile, Mariah, a beautiful smile." End of Chapter 8. Chapter 8 Commentary. Just as I mentioned in an early chapter commentary, it should be noted that in 1981, Native Americans were called Indians, which is not correct. To be more accurate, Indians hail from India, the subcontinent of Asia. Native Americans, on the other hand, are the indigenous peoples of the United States, or the original inhabitants before westward expansion brought settlers from all over the world. The author of P.S. I Love You, Barbara Conklin, is not misinformed or ignorant, merely that was the common terminology at the time the book was written. Another bit of commentary that's worth mentioning about the differences between 1981 and today in 2025 is that Paul's father owns what he calls a bookshop. Boutique bookshops were plentiful to find throughout the 1980s and 1990s. Boutique bookstores became a thing of the past in the late 1990s and early 2000s due to the big box stores like Barnes & Nobles and Borders bookstores. Ironically, both Borders and Barnes & Nobles lost huge consumership of their products when Amazon promoted digital content over printed publications. It's still my dream that boutique bookshops come back into vogue. Who knows? Trends come and go, and come back again all the time. Thank you for listening to Chapter 8 of P.S. I Love You by author Barbara Conklin, published by Bantam Books, copyright 1981. Join me tomorrow as we find out more about what's going on with the Johnson family and her father's departure in Chapter 9. As Mariah decides to lend a hand with the gazebo Paul and old Jim are constructing for the Abbotts.